Well, hello everyone. It is Karen Ann Harlos, the Pink Parliamentarian, with your bi-weekly quick and easy tips on Robert's Rules of Order. I am a registered parliamentarian with the National Association of Parliamentarians and am available for hire by your organization. You can find out more at pinkparliamentarian.com or write me at pinkparliamentarian@gmail.com. I also do offer brief free consultations, and my regular rates are very reasonable, at least I think so. I've done a lot of work in the political arena, sometimes as a floor parliamentarian and many more times as a convention parliamentarian, in addition to working with several nonprofits. My philosophy is people first, that we don't work for the rules work for us, and if that sounds like a good fit, please do get in touch. I would love to work with you. What we're talking about today is the idea of division. It does relate to the common use of splitting apart or separating, but we're going to be talking about it in the parliamentary sense. And we're going to deal with it over several shows because there are two major uses of this term, those being division of the question and division of the assembly. And while the same word is used, division, the foundational sense is the same, but the similarity ends there in a way that can be confusing to someone who is new to parliamentary procedure. Now, we're going to start with division of the question. And at first, when I started researching for this episode, I thought it was going to be one show. But it turns out division of the question is going to span multiple shows. And you want to know why? This is something that I love the most. When doing the preparation, I learned something new. Now, you're not going to learn in this show what was so shocking to me. It was so shocking to me that I literally was reading and my mind went, what? I've got questions, Lucy. But you're not going to learn about those questions this time, but we are going to get to it. So that's going to leave you in suspense and hungry for future episodes. So we're going to go slowly. What is a motion to divide the question? Well, to learn that, let's read Robert's Rules of Order 27:1. When a motion relating to a single subject, now remember that single subject because that's going to be important for a seeming exception to this motion's standard descriptive characteristics that we'll talk about later. So it's a single subject which contains several parts, each of which is capable of standing as a complete proposition if the others are removed. The parts can be separated to be considered and voted on as if they were distinct questions by adoption of the motion for division of a question or to divide the question. Now, in doing the division, because you're chopping this up, you're splitting it up, you might have to add a few introductory words to one part of it so that it makes sense. But this type of rewording can only be minimal. It can only be done as much as is needed for clarity. If it requires more than that, you can't handle it through division. And then if passed, so if the motion to divide passes, then the separate motions or resolutions, and as an aside, that gets very confusing, and we're going to do a show on the difference between, what is a resolution? But here's a quick tip for you right now. All resolutions are motions, but not all motions are resolutions. Resolutions are just a motion put into a specific form. I find it kind of old-fashioned-y, but we'll go over that. I think that's a good future episode. So if division passes, the separate motions or resolutions are considered separately. And I just repeated separate. So the divided ones are considered separately. And it is possible for one or more of them to pass and others to fail, and vice versa. So if we go to General Roberts' seminal work, Parliamentary Law, he states, a motion cannot be divided unless each of the propositions into which it is to be divided is suitable for adoption if all the others are rejected. And that is really key. So as I mentioned before, if a motion is not easily divisible, but it contains some objectionable parts that perhaps you'd like voted on separately, it can't be done through division of the question. It must be perfected through amendments. But in that type of situation, it's often advisable to refer the motion to committee for further workshopping in order to present something more acceptable and manageable to the Assembly. Now, I went and checked some other parliamentary authorities, and I'm not an expert by any means in Demeter's. So this is my understanding of what I read. So Demeter's, interestingly, seem to require an element of confusion to be present in order to justify the motion to divide. So the Assembly would need to be actually confused or likely to be confused in order for a question to be divided. The fact that part of it might be contentious is not justification for a division of the question in Demeter's. And Demeter says that should be dealt with through amendment. Now, while this isn't something that I'm used to, I do see some wisdom in that. Okay, that is it for this episode. I think it is a good introduction, leading us into getting some of the complications of this seemingly simple, but as I learned, in reality, not so simple motion. So what do you think? Do you have any questions? I would love to see them in comments. Okay, everyone, thank you so much for joining me. And as with all the episodes, I hope it gave you some food for thought. Remember that I am available for hire by your organization. You can find out more at pinkparliamentarian.com or by writing me at pinkparliamentarian@gmail.com. I'd also love it if you'd subscribe to this channel, but also check out and maybe subscribe to my other channels, Pink Flame of Liberty, which looks at politics and sometimes history from a distinctly libertarian point of view, and Jurassic Dictionary, where I examine a dying, dead, or just plain interesting, unusual word bi-weekly on opposite weeks to this show. And it's even better if that word has some cool historical spin. So until next time, I hope you have an awesome night, day, or whatever time it happens to be in your part of this wonderful world. Thank you so much for joining me.